It's time to talk golf on Prime Sports Network, and we're doing it without Jan Stevenson this week, who is, as you know, away. We talked about that last week. Not only away, she's in Australia. So the time difference is, I believe, 14 hours. And we just, considering she just got there, just figured it would be in our best interest, especially her best interest, that she takes the week off, gathers herself, and then we'll talk to her next week because next week might be a better week to kind of just chill anyway. As you all know, there isn't a golf event on the PGA Tour that I despise the most than what they put together next week in New Orleans. I hate it. I don't even watch it, and it's the only event all year I don't watch. So I have no interest unless there's a team that catches my eye for some reason, like a new team this year, but I'm just really not interested. I don't even know. Maybe there's something on the LPGA or European Tour that'll catch my fancy. But anyway, we're here to talk about the upcoming event this week, and I'm recording this on Wednesday. It's a little late, but better than ever. Better late than ever. And that is the RBC Heritage. And what we're going to do is we're not going to do anything except talk about handicapping. And that's it. And we're probably going to do this a lot more often. Matter of fact, the idea originally to bring Jan on the network is so she can have her own show, which is really going to center around interviews, where she's going to interview some of the leading golfers in the industry, men, ladies, and all sorts of other cool things like taking a look at professional swings. That's something that she's going to break down as well, which can't wait to do that. So we got a lot of other things that we're trying to set her up for. You know, the first handful of shows, basically just to kind of get us going, because Jan and I haven't done shows for years. So that was really the idea. And by the time she gets back from Australia, we should have a whole new different format according to, as I mentioned, what we originally designed for Jan and what I'll be doing, which is basically just going to be putting these types of reports out to handicap the events each week. So let's get right to it. All right. All right. Now let's start. First of all, let's start. I don't want to be disappearing too soon. Let's start first of all with the fact that, and you've seen this if you've watched any of the shows so far, you know, I've run through the reports, the weekly reports that I basically write out. And I used to have a website, so I used to be able to post these articles, but all of my attention now is on the YouTube channel. So instead, for this week, I'm going to kind of condense everything together and put it in front of you as quickly. And I'm going to try to do my best to analyze everything that I've researched this week on this event. But I wanted to update you guys. We've handicapped 6 events so far. The last 6 events, we've hit 2 of them. And in golf, if you can go, if we can reach this kind of percentage all season, we're going to do really well, because it is so hard to handicap golf. And the way that we have it handicapped, and we've shown you the point system that I put together, and I'll go over it again. But bottom line is we have the top 5 that we do, and we have 2 alternates. The 2 alternates are in case anybody obviously withdraws before the event. But in years past, I used to put no points to that. So if neither one of those players were actually involved in our picks that week, then and actually won, well, we didn't get anything for it. So I decided, well, I'll take a couple of, let me take 20 points away from the top 5 and split it up to 10 points each for the alternatives, just in case, because that really didn't make a lot of sense for our record. And it's only $20 invested in the alternates each week anyway. But what they mean is, and really the bottom line is I will definitely put money on all 7 of those golfers. And I usually put money to start with each week on about 15, I'd say, each week. Now, half of those players could be $1 each. And it all depends on what my account looks like, my sportsbook account. And that's because you're going to get, obviously, golfers 80 to 1, 100 to 1, 150 to 1, 200 to 1. So I put, put $1 on those guys. And you have to do that, because you never know where these winners are going to come from. Okay, so anyway, so there we are. We're 2 for 6 so far. We're up 1,400 thanks to Scotty Scheffler. And Scotty's been our big winner so far this year. We hit him in the match play, and then we've hit him in the Masters. And he was our top pick last week. Kind of surprised. We talked about that last week on the Masters preview, that I guess not. Well, he actually, his odds went from 16 to 1, I think, from the start, and he was about the fourth or fifth choice. A day or two later, he was like the second choice. Then the day before, he went back to being like 18 to 1. I'm not sure why. I don't know why everybody kind of stayed away from Scheffler. Maybe it was because they looked at his record. He only played there a couple of times. He didn't have a top 15, whatever the case may be. And it's very rare for players to only win on their third attempt at the Masters. But Scheffler was playing so well that we just had to go with him. And anyway, he came through for us big time. Okay, now next, where? Well, we've already told you, the RBC Heritage. And this is interesting because it comes right after the Masters. And the Masters, you can, if you have wayward shots off the tee, yes, you can get in big trouble, but there's a lot of times that you can actually escape trouble at Augusta. This is completely different, right? This is a narrow golf course. So it's accuracy over power. And that's why most of the players, like a Dustin Johnson, doesn't particularly have a great resume here, and he's not even on my list in any way, shape, or form. Because I'm actually surprised how many good players there are this week. And I think I'm guessing the reason for that is based on the schedule. Because again, next week, who cares about next week? You're going to have a lot of players going to skip next week. Then you have the WGC, the Mexico event coming up, so they'll be playing in that. So I think they prefer not to. And they usually, a lot of these guys didn't play the week before the Masters. So they don't want to play the Masters, and then not play. So this is really good for RBC Heritage, and it's a nice location, no question about it. It's a beautiful part of the country. I'm not a big fan aesthetically of the golf course, especially 18. The marshes. It's just, to me, it's just not my thing. That's the one hole, especially in 18, that you always, because it's just weird. On most 18s, you get these, especially nowadays, you get the grandstands, and it's usually encompassed, surrounding, the hole. And you go here to RBC Heritage, and it's like, you just marshes over here, and you get the big hole there, and it's like, where is everybody? It's just very weird. It's very, it's just not, like I said, I've never been there, so maybe it's different on site. But on TV, it's, especially after the Masters, it's just not my thing. But anyway, it's always cool. It's kind of a hangover effect as well, because you go from the Masters, the biggest event of the year, you're going to have a little bit of a letdown. It's going to be, okay, it's not the Masters. But I think once you get into it, especially if you got players in contention, you're right back into it, because it's, hey, it's golf. And if you're a golf fan like I am, then it doesn't really matter where it is. Okay, now, next up, trends. Now, these are the key trends for this week. Now, 5 of the last 8 are winners are international players. I think that matters just enough, because it just shows you, it's not surprising, since for the last 10 years or so, except for scheduling conflict a couple of years ago, it's been right after the Masters. So going to have a lot of international players that are going to be around for the Masters. So it's not a big surprise. But what it does say is that it's an open field. I mean, it doesn't really matter where you're from. Now, how about this? 5 of the last 7 winners, first-time winners. And this is important. I say first time. And that's and when I say first time, that means I'm not going to include Stuart Sink, who won last year for his 3rd win at this event, or Jim Furyk, who won in 2015, which was his 2nd. So I'm going to go from basically Webb Simpson 2020 down to Brandt Snedeker in 2011 as the first time, the last 10 first-time winners, and for most of the trends. And that includes here that 5 of the last 7 made just 4 appearances or less. And matter of fact, 2 of them were making their first appearance. And that was Kadera in 18 and Brian in 17. And so if you look at it, let's go before Simpson and Sink, okay? So from 2019 to 2016, okay, let's start at 16 with Brendan Grace. 2nd appearance, Brian 1st, Kadera 1st, CT Penn 3rd. So you're talking about those 4 players before Simpson had appeared there 3 times or less, with a couple of guys just coming there just appearing there for the first time. So you do not have to have a lot of experience playing here. And even though the rankings are pretty, they're a little high, but not so high. We've seen a lot of events over the course of the season that, not a lot, but you have a number of events that have had higher rankings, higher ranking winners. But the last 10 first-time winners had an average ranking of 41st. And it's interesting because even if I use Sync and go all the way down to Furyk in 2010, even if I use them, those 12, by adding them, just the last 12 winners, the highest ranking is Sync. Yes, at 115th, and only 2 players ranked over 100. Pan was the other one at 111. So that just shows you that even though the rankings are a little high, it's like you're basically saying, yeah, there's not a lot of, and this is, and I think it's not a surprise too. Like I said, you come after the Masters. In the past, you could take a break and then appear 2 weeks later. Most players aren't doing that now with the New Orleans event coming after the RBC. They're now saying I play here instead. So we'll get a better field, which means I think there's now going to be a better chance that we will see players ranked in the top 10 in the world winning here if this stays like this over the next several years, which is good for the event. Okay, so meanwhile, if you look at it, only 3 of the last 10 first-time winners ranked inside the top 10. So that's Simpson was ranked 9th a couple of years ago. He's the last first-time winner. And matter of fact, Furyk ranked 6th. That was 12 years ago. That's the lowest or the highest ranking player to win here in the last 12 years. Actually, Kuchar and Furyk, because Kuchar did it in 2014, ranking 6th as well. And 4 of the last 5 first-time winners made this event their first win on a PGA Tour, their maiden win. 4 of the last 5 first-time winners. So take Simpson out of the equation. Pan, Kodaira, Brian, and Grace all made this event their first PGA Tour win. And of course, Grace, even though he had a whole bunch of European Tour events and so forth, he had never won on the PGA Tour before. So there you go. Okay, next up, we're going to talk about the favorites. Here they are. And these are my favorites. And again, like I said, I'm not going to put everybody in there. And that's how I break this down, these reports down. So I'm not going to put, you want the whole field, we'll just go ahead and check out the field, PGAtour.com or the RBC Heritage page, or go to a sports book. But I'm leaving guys out that even though they're one of the favorites or top contenders, I just don't really think that they stand a good chance, like Dustin Johnson, who has never had a top 10 here in 6 appearances, because again, I just don't think this suits his game, and I'm kind of surprised he keeps coming here. But he was 13th last year, might have been his best finish. So there are going to be top players I don't put in this list, and Dustin is definitely the biggest omission. But there you go, Morikawa, Smith, and Thomas. Those are the top 3 favorites, all at 14-1. And then you could see the rest. Cantlay had a tremendous resume here in his first 3, 7th, 3rd, and 3rd, but he missed a cut last year. And here's the thing that you have to keep in mind too, if you have enough time, or you just check out reports like this, so you let me do all the work. And that is that you can, if you see a player that is either struggling at a specific event or doing really well at a specific event, it's important to find out how were they playing though during that time period, that season. And when you look at a guy like Cantlay, you'll find out that Cantlay, in the 3 times that he finished top 10 here with the 2 top 5s, he was playing pretty well coming into this event. But last year, matter of fact, let me see if I could pop that up here. Where do I have my heritage information? And I, by the way, I don't have it for. I could put it up there for the viewers, and I use a really good rankings page that helps me out. But I'm just going to quickly just take a look at Cantlay myself. And last year, when he missed the cut at RBC Heritage, he had missed the cut at the Masters. Okay, so right there is proof that if he's playing well, I take him. So if he had a top 10 last week at the Masters, I'd jump all over him this week. But the fact that Cantlay did not play well last, matter of fact, if you take a look at over Cantlay's last 3 events outside the match play, 39th, missed cut, 33rd. This is as bad as Cantlay's played in a while. So there's too many other good contenders to take that you're always looking for excuses from the really good players who could easily win these things I can't lay. And that's my excuse. Okay, and then you got a couple other players who are playing great right now who are going to be on my list: Lowry, Connors, and a couple who, and Im is not. And I really wanted to put him on my list, but I couldn't. And Cameron Smith, I just got to think that he's going to take a breather this week. He's been just so good, and I think the Masters also had to take a little bit out of him. But he's been pretty good here. A couple top 15s. He was 9th last year. Justin's got a couple of top 15s, including an 8th the last time he played here a few years ago. I just think there's something missing from Justin's game. Now, I think as soon as Justin wins, especially if he wins and he does it where he's playing well and he's putting well and everything's back in sync, then I'm going to just jump all over him again and until he starts heading back the other way. But there's something about his game, and we talked about it last week, and I was able to convince Jan to second guess her initial idea of Justin Thomas as her Masters pick. And a lot of people liked Justin Thomas last week, but there's just something missing. You know, as hard as he's trying and as talented as he is, there's just something missing. And again, I think a lot of it has to do with the putter. And sometimes it's even his iron game, if you can believe it. But especially off the tee. And that's why this week I don't know. More than capable, but I just not until I see something better. But unfortunately, a guy like Justin, handicapper's perspective, he's gonna probably just put it all together one week. He's not gonna I can't see him going where he's gonna look really good, but he doesn't win. That's not gonna happen. If he's gonna turn it on like that. You just have to guess when that's gonna be. And that's hard to do. It really is. Okay. So next up, let's go to the contenders. And here you've got these. Now, these are my top contenders. These are the players that have the talent to win and that I seriously thought of taking. So they were on my last list. And matter of fact, Kisner and Nod did not make my list, and they were this close from making my list. But I just didn't have room for him. Kirk, we know he's playing better, and he played his best golf here last year, so that's something. McNeely, now Jan thinks that's her pick, Maverick McNeely, to break his maiden this year. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago. My pick is on this board here at Pereira. One of my picks is Pereira. But her pick is McNeely, and he finished 4th here last year. But he only has one top 10 in his last 13 events. So, but I was considering him. I was also considering Noren. Noren's another player I believe will break his maiden this year. He's like a Brendan Grace type. He would fit perfectly like Grace won in 16. He's got all those other events, worldwide event wins, but he's never won on the PGA Tour. He's played pretty well here over his career. He also has 5 top 30s in his last 6. So I was that close. I just couldn't get him in. Noren, non-Kisner. Those were the 3 closest players that did not make my list. Then you look at the long shots. Like I said, Pereira. I think as long as he's playing well, it's very likely I'm going to try to take him every week and hope that when he wins, I've got him. And McCarthy's actually also played pretty well lately. He's trending in the right direction. And he's had, I think he had a 13th, right? A couple of years ago, which was his best finish year. I believe that was his. So he was someone. Oh, and Troy Merritt almost made my list too, because Merritt is trending in the right direction. I mean, he's just his last 5 events. He's gotten better each time, culminating with a 4th place finish a few weeks ago in Texas. And in his last 5 events here, he's got 2 top 10s, 1 top 5. So Merritt is somebody, but he does have 1 PGA Tour win. And but anyway, yes, I would throw a buck on Troy Merritt. Poulter. I'm going to throw a buck on Poulter this week because out of any player in this field, he's the only player who has never missed a cut with double-digit appearances. He's 11 for 11, making the cut. This golf course is tailor-made for him. So I'm actually surprised he hasn't had a better resume, but keep in mind, he has been good here. 4 top 15s in his last 5. It's just that he hasn't had a top 10 in his last 7. So that's why I could not take him this week. Is one of my top picks. And Beau Hossler has been, for a really deep long shot, Beau Hossler has popped up on the radar 3 times in the past couple of months. And that means he's getting close. I just don't think this golf course is good for him because he's just his his tee game is just not good at all. He's just very inconsistent, inaccurate, and that should not be good for him here. Matter of fact, he hasn't made the cut since 2000 and what was it, 9 maybe 2008 when he finished 16th. So he's 1 for 3 making the cut here, but he's really playing well. 4 top 20s in his last 7, including 2 top 5s and a 4th the last time out in Texas. And then my 250 to 1 long shots are Hickok. Hickok is sort of like Pereira in a way, but with a bigger number. Where and sort of like also like I was just saying, not only with Noren but Pereira, as far as I think he's going to get his maiden PGA win. Not sure this year, but in the next year or two. And at 250 to 1, he's worth $1 to me as long as he's playing well enough. And so that's why I put him in there at 250 to 1. And Kanaya, he might fit this golf course perfectly as a winner, because we've, again, Kodaira won, and he was from Japan, and as I said, and CT Pan won, Taiwan, I believe it is. And so maybe that's also something that you need to keep an eye on. Not necessarily that they're Asian, but again, I believe in trends, and that is a trend that might make sense. Sometimes you just go with it. And that's what happens when you usually have like a bunch of picks that are considered like your 5 or 10 gut picks. And those are usually yours alone. And then you got other guys, other analysts and handicappers that will have their own gut picks. So there's no question that half of my picks each week are gut picks because that's how hard it is to win. And I've done that because I've had enough success over it. Matter of fact, there was an event. What was it? I forget which one it was last year, but there was an event last year. I had a player like at 200 to 1 who won. And I had picked him like the week before, and then I picked him then, and he was one of these big long shots, but he was just showing enough, popping up enough, sort of like a Bo Hostler, and then he finally broke out in the very week I picked him. So it happens enough. Because look, if you invest $1, let's just put it this way, you invest like $1 on these gut picks, you only really need to win one of them a year. That's what's great about it. Because the gut picks like that are usually 150, 200, 250 to 1. So it pays for it. Okay, so now we're going to go to our picks. And here they are. All right, so here are our picks. And Morikawa is a very difficult player to handicap. I've said it before, and he just is. He's one of these players that can win whenever you just aren't expecting him to win. But there have been times when he's shown a little bit of hey, you know what? It looks like he's trending in the right direction. And that's why I'm going to go with him this week. He's trending in the right direction over his last 4 events, including a 5th last week, which was very good 5th, 9th before that. So I like where he's going there. I also like the fact that he was 7th here last year. And so if I'm picking a favorite, I'm going with him because I think that, like I said, I'm just not sure. And I don't know if this is the right spot for him to get well. Cameron Smith, I've taken Cameron Smith a bunch of times lately. I love the kid. I think he's going to be an awesome player. So, but I just have a feeling he might cool off a little this week after last week. Told you about DJ. Told you about Cantlay. And so out of the favorites, Morikawa was my guy. Okay, Lowry and Connors. Now, here are a couple of guys. You look at Shane Lowry, and you know how hot he is. And he is just very due for a win. Oh, if you take a look, not including match play this year, he's got 7 top 25s in all 7 events he's played. 6 of those are top 15s. 2 of those are top 5s and the runner-up at the Honda. And then he's actually played here 4 times. And in the last 3 times he's played here, he's finished 3rd and then 9th. 9th was last year. So this is perfectly set up for Shane Lowry to go out there and maybe get a win. Corey Connors. He's played here 5 times. He seems to get better each time, especially over those last 3 appearances. 4th last year, his best finish. And he's got 5 straight top 35s on the season, including a 3rd place finish. That was, of course, at the match play. So I really like the way both of those players are playing and trending, and they've got the experience of playing well here. So I think they're no-brainers for me. Matthew Fitzpatrick, I was shocked that he only had 1 top 10 here. I think that just like Poulter, I think for a player over there, I think this is a perfect setup for a guy like Fitzpatrick. 4th last year, he's just dialed in, really. I mean, he is playing very well. Just taking a look at Fitzpatrick overall, he missed a cut at the Players, okay? He hadn't missed a cut before that since the Italian Open last September, okay? And everybody plays crazy at the Players. Nobody has a good, consistent history there, especially what happened last month with the weather conditions. So who cares? I don't give him a bad time for that at all. But if you look at it, he's got a bunch of top 20s. He's got the win over in Europe, which actually was later in the season in 2021, last year actually. But since the beginning of 2022, besides the Players, everything's a top 20. And he also has top 10s, and he was 5th at the Valspar. So I think Fitzpatrick is definitely a player here. And then Adam Hadwin. Now this is the one that I was thinking Kisner, and this was one where I was really thinking. I was trying to convince myself not to, because he doesn't have a great history here. Take a look at Adam Hadwin. He's played here a bunch of times, but he's missed the cut as much as he's made the cut, or he's made the cut, I think, one other time. His best finish is 22nd. So he's just been okay whenever he's made the cut here. But what I like about Hadwin, and I said this also a week or 2 ago, he's like a breakthrough player for me. I think Adam Hadwin has a talent to be a top 20 player, top 25 player. And I'm hoping this is the beginning of it, because if you look at it, he has gotten better over the last 4 events, including 3 straight top 10s on tour. And each of those top 10s have been better than the previous. 4th last time out in Texas. So he's red hot. His game cannot be playing much better. He knows the golf course. He's been here enough. And I figured at 50-1, I'll make him my 5th pick. Now, the other guy that made it was Varner. And I didn't mention him before, but Varner's also a guy that made it. And Varner hadn't done anything at this golf course until last year when he was runner-up to Sink. But we know how well he's playing now. He's never won a PGA event, though. Both of his wins are overseas. So he's, at some point, he's going to win on the PGA Tour. We'll see if this is it. But it's still going to be kind of hard to go 2nd and 1st. But he just missed out on the top 5. And then anytime I'm going to have an alternate, because it's only $10 on my, as you can see, that's the dollar amount. 100, 70, 50, 40, 20, 10, 10. Anybody that's going to be an alternate can't be like, I'm not going to put like a guy that's 20-1. I mean, I could, but I'd still lose money. I wouldn't lose 300 of my invested money, but I'm still losing. So I'm not going to put an alternate back there very often, if at all. It's usually going to be long shots, and that's why Pereira was a perfect long shot for me there, along with Varner. So anyway, that and just quickly before I go, I'll just talk about the other players. Neiman has only played here once. He finished 5th a couple years ago. Okay, I didn't like the way he finished last week, but he looks like he's a player now. So watch out for Joaquin Neiman. Like I mentioned, very close to picking him. 13th last year was the first time he made the cut. He's trending in the right direction with the 8th last week, the solid 8th at the Masters. Simpson is a very good resume here. And this is, it's if you look at it, 7 top 20s in his last 10, three top 5s, a runner-up and a win. Hatton was 3rd a couple of years ago. Kisner, I'm surprised he hasn't won here. This is a perfect course for him. Runner-up in 2015, though, and he's playing well. Remember, he was 4th at the Players and runner-up in match play. So That's why he was definitely in consideration. Kevin Na played well at the Masters last week, and also put pretty decent at match play. And he's got 5 top 10s in 15 attempts here, including a couple of top 5s. So I was very close. Noren's got 3 top 30s in 3 appearances. So that's the reason why I was pretty close to making him the guy. Knox has 4 top 20s in 8 appearances with a runner-up. And let's see, who else were we considering? Lahiri. Remember, we picked him a couple of weeks ago. He finished 13th, but he's never really played well here at all. So if he gets off to a good start, and by the way, I'm going to talk about that in a second. If it's off to a good start, look at Lahiri. Okay, also Willett. I was considering Willett because he's actually is trending in the right direction, including a very strong showing last week. But I don't even know if he's ever made the cut here. I think he's 0 for 3. So that's not good. But I put a buck on him at 150 to 1. And Stallings trending in the right direction, but he's never played well here. But he was also someone I was considering. Lastly, I want to talk about the other trend that is a very important trend, which I didn't put up on the board, but this is for round by round trends. And these are important for live betting. And if we look here, let me get the one I'm looking for. If we get to the one that I think is most important, actually, is the beginning. Okay. If your player does not play well, or a couple players don't play well early on, do not fret. Okay. 50%, 5 of the last 10, okay, winners. Not first-time winners, but winners. 5 of the last 10 started the second round 35th or higher, including 37th, 54th, 58th, and 82nd. Okay? So you can get off to a slow start at RBC and still win this thing. So I wouldn't worry about that. And if it wasn't for the last couple of years, this trend was on fire. Because if you think about it, if I would have talked about this 2 years ago, I would have said only 1 of the last 8 winners led starting the final round. That's strange. You know, I know it's sometimes hard to lead, but 1 of 8, but the last 2 have won. Simpson and Sink. Now, Simpson and Sink are major champs. And so, if you look at it, remember I was talking about the guys before that. They were like the guys who had never won, haven't played much here, had never won a PGA Tour event. You know, the Pans, Kadairas, the Bryans, and the Graces. Before we get back to some major champs like McDowell, who's won here, Fierick has won here a couple times, and even a great player like Kuchar's won here. So I think what this is telling me is if somebody's in the lead that doesn't have a lot of experience holding leads, somebody that hasn't had a lot of wins, somebody that is not a major champ, and my player is somewhere, you know, I guess it really doesn't matter where, as long as he's not leading and he's in that spot, then I'm okay. I'm all right with it. So I'm going to be okay with someone leading this event if it doesn't have that type of background. So I think you should also be aware of that. And that's going to wrap it up. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it useful. Again, as I mentioned, I'm going to try to put these out on a weekly basis if I don't produce these shows with Jan. Sometimes I'll do them anyway, but a lot is going to depend. I mean, this is going to be a very tough month anyway with the NFL draft coming up here on the channel. And next week, I don't even know if I'm going to handicap this event because I don't watch it. So if something changes and I see something that I've never seen before, then maybe I will. But it's very possible I'm not even going to handicap the event next week. But then we start getting into some good venues again, and we'll be back into it. And then Jan will be back in a few weeks anyway from Australia. So we just hope you're patient. I know we haven't gotten the viewership yet with this particular sport. That's not surprising. We haven't done it before on this channel for a few years, even though I have been on the air with Jeff Shane, who's a golf writer, who's now with the Villages. And I did shows with Jeff for many years, golf shows on a weekly basis for years. Even going all the way back to the days of being a sports talk show host in South Florida, which is pretty much like the mecca of golf in this country, the location of where you want to play golf. So we have a lot of background, a lot of history, and we're going to ramp things up here. It's going to take a little while. It always does, especially with something new. But we're going to add in some good analysts as well. So you just give us a little time. And in the meanwhile, we hope you support us. You can always go to our Patreon page at patreon.com/PrimeSN. And even though we don't have anything up there besides our horse racing show that's basically a service we have, a premium service for people who want to pay for those shows that are not available for free on our channel. Right now, it's just a horse racing show, which is starting to build a nice little audience. And that's obviously good for everybody because most people, you can watch all of our other programming for free. But the other reason why that's important is because for as little as $5 a month, that helps us to continue to build this channel the way that we want to do it and to continue to bring in the type of analysts that we want to bring in to make these shows that much better. And it's great to have a Hall of Fame golfer like Jan. We have a horse racing trainer like Chad. We've got great handicappers. I mean, you're talking the best handicappers in the business. There's a lot of fly-by-night handicappers in the last 5 or 10 years, but you're talking about John Hardoon, who's been doing it for 40 years in the thoroughbred racing industry. You talk about Mark Lawrence, who's been doing it for, again, same time period almost, doing it for football and a lot of the other major sports. And of course, even though he's not as old, Eric Smith is accredited media rep for both NASCAR and IndyCar. So he actually goes to the races, and he's actually going to be in Indianapolis for 3 weeks on site for both races, including the Indianapolis 500. So this is just the beginning of a whole lot of other really cool programs that we're going to have here on the channel. And that's really what the patreon.com/PrimeSN channel is right now for, with the exception of our horse racing programming, is you guys can support us. And in the meanwhile, we have some really cool stuff that we can give away at random times. Matter of fact, the NFL draft guide from our lads is coming out. So we'll be giving away a few of those randomly. Who we're going to give it off to? Well, we'll do it. And most likely it'll be the people who help us out there on our Patreon page. And John Hardoon's got a whole bunch of stuff that he's going to be helping us to give away. And we've got some other really cool stuff that we're going to disperse to a lot of and not just the people who pay for it, but people who are just hanging out and being our diehard viewers here on the channel as well. So we hope you enjoyed it. And we're going to keep doing this for the rest of the season. And you see that total there? It says plus 1,400. If we can keep that in the plus all season long, then we're doing our job, and hopefully you're making some money off of this too. So we'll see you next week. Hopefully we'll get the Jan back. We'll see how things are going on Australia. And until then, enjoy the golf this week, and thanks for tuning in.